Good evening and welcome to the Raleigh Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting of the whole on September 20th, 2021. My name is Dwight Otwell. I am the chair of the commission at this point, and I would also like to introduce Nick Neptune as our vice chair. Eric Lamb is a Raleigh Transportation Planning Director, and he will be facilitating the meeting this evening. And I'm going to try something new here. I think I'm going to try the introductions so that we can get through this a little bit faster. So I've introduced myself and our vice chair, Nick Neptune. I'd like to introduce Joe Caruso, who is taking over as the chair of the policy committee. And if you could just go ahead and raise your hand as I go through this. Also on that committee, we have Kari Barsness, and she is not in attendance at this point, and Kelly Woodall, who is here with us today. Nick also heads up our outreach committee as the chair of the outreach committee. Also on that committee is Shakima McLean, who is not present at the time, Susan Hatchell, who I believe just joined us again, and Brian Thomas.
I'm here this time.
Yay! And chairing the planning committee, we have Pierre Tong. And also on the planning committee, we have Mary Jo Gellenbeck and Liz Hester, who is an excused absence for this evening. Moving on from the introductions, we will take up the meeting minutes from our previous meeting. And if you would take a look, I hope everybody has had a chance to check out the minutes. And also please note that the minutes are including all of the committee minutes they're included on the link on the agenda. So if you haven't looked at your committee, please jump onto the agenda real quick. Has everybody had a chance to review, or does anybody need to look at their committee meeting? Anybody need to look? I'm gonna look for hands. All right, in that case, let's go ahead. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion by Kelly Woodall. Is there a second?
I second it.
Mary Jo Gellenbeck will second that. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Opposed? It looks unanimous to me, so the minutes are approved. Next up on the agenda, we have public comments. And so, Mr. Lamb, do we have anybody that wishes to make a comment from the gallery today? I believe you're still muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry, thank you for that. There's one citizen in attendance tonight. I've reached out through the chat to see if he wishes to speak in public comments or in related to another item on the agenda. I have not heard back. So in an absence of feedback, I would recommend you go ahead and proceed.
All right. Well, we'll keep our ears open and see if something pops up later. And moving right on along to presentations then. I believe that we have a guest speaker who real quickly wants to plug the Vision Zero program. Do we want to take that up at the very first, or do we have that? Mr. Black, I believe, had a schedule in mind for that.
Yes, if he is on. Is Jason Harden on, Eric?
Yep.
Excellent. Hey, Jason.
I would like to recognize Jason Harden from the planning department, and he's going to give us a brief plug for the Vision Zero program.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for giving me a minute. I want to talk about an upcoming summit that is part of the New Bern Station area planning process and is coming up in October 15th. I want to mention that although it's part of this station area planning process where we're thinking about walkability and access to housing and jobs and opportunity along transit, we're also looking at some policy considerations that would be relevant potentially citywide and look at it as an opportunity to build on some of the conversations that y'all have had about Vision Zero and those goals, and hopefully reach some new voices into the conversation and some policymakers as well. We have a great set of speakers who will be a part of this, including Angie Schmidt, who many of y'all may know. She recently wrote a book about pedestrian safety, and I'm super excited to have her as a part of that. She is doing a lot to elevate this conversation nationally. As far as details, it'll be that afternoon from 1 to 4. We also have a project page for New Bern Station area planning where there's more information about it. But just wanted to go ahead and kind of put this on your mental radar. It's going to be, we think, an opportunity to look at potentially some really bold solutions to this issue that there's been not enough progress made, I think, and not in Raleigh. I just think as a society nationally, we have not made enough progress on this, and want to have this conversation and want to really make some improvements and get closer to zero. Happy to answer questions if y'all have any. Mainly just wanted to let y'all know about this upcoming event.
Mr. Harden, did you say that was an in-person or a virtual event?
It will be both. We will be at the Urban Design Center, which is One Exchange Plaza, downtown Raleigh, but we're also going to have a virtual participation option for people who that works better. And we've learned a lot lately about how to do those dual in-person and online meetings, make them a little bit more smooth and seamless. So we think we can offer, for people who want to participate either way, a great experience. Angie Schmidt will be remote. We'll probably have some other speakers remote. So whatever works better for people is going to be fine for attendance.
Mr. Neptune.
Just a quick comment to say that I really appreciate Mr. Harden being with us, and that I am looking forward to attending the summit in October. It's right in time for Walktober and all of our various Walktober related events and programming and celebration of our pedestrian community. So just again, a quick comment to say that I really appreciate Jason being with us tonight, and I'm looking forward to attending the program in October, and hope everybody can join us who's interested. Also, one quick note, there is a gentleman on the call, I think Doug Johnston. He is trying to speak up, make a public comment, but he's unable to, I guess, be unmuted. If Mr. Lamb could maybe unmute Mr. Johnson, I guess after Mr. Harden is done. Mr. Johnson is currently texting me about his inability to participate. So if, again, Mr. Lamb, once Mr. Harden is done, if you could unmute Mr. Johnson for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gellenbeck.
Oh, thanks. Sorry to jump in there, Brian, in the middle of the, okay. Yes, Mr. Harding, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. Is there a link for registration to the event? Is this something that we need to do in advance?
No registration is necessary. So just show up if you're interested. And I will make sure I'll coordinate with Paul as we have a little bit more detailed agenda in the next couple of days to make sure that gets to all y'all.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. I'm really excited about it, and especially that you guys are placing some attention on policies. So very cool.
Mr. Thomas.
I just wanted to see if Mr. Harden would repeat the date for us. I didn't catch that at the beginning.
Friday, October 15th, from 1 to 4 p.m.
Mr. Otwell, if I could just make one more quick comment. I had the pleasure and privilege of spending some time with Mr. Harden and some members of the planning department team and housing and neighborhoods team to talk about affordable housing in the city of Raleigh. And I just want to say that it was time well spent to hear all the work and all the programs that the city has underway to make investments in affordable housing, to make investments in people who are trying to stay in their housing in the city. And so I just, want to further encourage folks, if they have the capacity to show up and participate either in person or virtually with this walking summit in October. It's, again, it's time very, very well spent. There's a lot of good work being done by city staff and this, our teams across the city, to make investments and improvements in our infrastructure, and residents and citizens of Raleigh should feel encouraged to come out and participate in that process.
Thank you, Nick. All right, if there's nothing else, thank you, Mr. Harden.
Mr. Chair, I just want to give Jason Harden credit for coming to us live this evening on remote from the Scarborough Road Community Center, I believe, at the site of some of the ongoing meetings this week regarding the New Bern BRT. So just thank you for your dedication for phoning it in here.
Thank you very much.
Do you see how hard they're working? Double time. I mean, it's no joke.
No joke.
Mr. Neptune, did Mr. Johnson say if he was here to speak in general public comments or on a specific item?
Right now, I've just got general comments. He didn't say something specific.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I spoke with Mr. Johnson yesterday we ran into each other on the Greenway Trail, and I'm relatively certain that he wants to talk about the Greenway Master Plan update. So if we hold that comment, Doug, I hear you, and we'll get you in when we discuss the Greenway plan.
Thank you, Mr. Otwell.
Nick, if that's wrong.
No, I suspect that is the case.
All right.
Maybe he might want to talk now so he doesn't have to wait. I'm just saying.
I'm going to hold it. Let's go. Let's get it, and we'll get it with the meeting. They go together because we'll end up discussing those issues twice. Next up on the presentations list, we have Mr. Anagnost, and we'll have an update on the Capitol Boulevard North area. And if you guys remember, if everybody remembers from last time, we requested that the Capitol Boulevard side path or bike facilities be left in the plan, and look for more updates from Mr. Anagnost. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Otwell, and good evening, Commissioners. I'm also coming to you from the Tarboro Road Community Center, and I'll let you know my Wi-Fi signal is pretty weak, so please let me know if you're having trouble hearing me. But I believe Eric has some slides that we'll be looking at to go with this presentation. But I'm here to talk about the Capitol Boulevard North Corridor Study, which has now been renamed the Capitol North Corridor Plan for the purposes of the final report, which will be presented to the City Council next month. And so that's why I'm here with you today to talk about the contents of that final report. And so this is a corridor plan that's been going on for about 3 years now, and it applies to the area of Capitol Boulevard between I-440 and I-540. I joined you in February of this year to share a lot of the same information. We did actually reconfigure the report a little bit between then and now, but if we can go to the next slide, we can jump right in. And so I'll talk about where we've come from with this report and then what's actually in it. Next slide, please. So there's the study area. It is mostly the commercial areas along Capitol Boulevard, although in the north end there is a larger study area that extends beyond just the commercial areas. Next slide. And if you click one more time, Eric, you'll see where we are in the process. So we're at the final stage here of presenting this plan to the City Council, and it'll be in front of them on October 5th for them to potentially refer to the Planning Commission for a November start to the Planning Commission review. Next slide, please. And so the reason that this was delayed from when you last saw it in February is that when we looked at the potential impacts of the magnitude of the transportation projects that are proposed in this plan and the potential development that is likely to be associated with that, it was pretty clear that those were going to be disruptive to the existing development pattern and the existing communities on this corridor. And so the Planning and Development Department decided that it was really important to make sure we had a strong focus on equity and community stabilization prior to those disruptions, to make sure that there was an ample opportunity for existing communities to not only not be as negatively impacted, but to have the greatest chance of benefiting from the projects that are proposed. And so we have beefed up the community investment section and made that actually the first component of the plan structure, and have specific guidance that the recommendations related to community investments occur first before the transportation projects get underway. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about bicycle infrastructure. But let me walk through the contents of the plan, and then we'll get into the bicycle recommendations. So next slide, please. So some of you may remember that the core of this plan is recommending the Capitol Boulevard be converted to what's called a multi-way boulevard. And that means that there would be two different types of lanes, a regional set of lanes and a local set of lanes. And the way that those would interact with each other is through grade separated interchanges. So most of the intersections along this corridor would be converted to grade separated interchanges. Next slide, please. And this is basically what that would look like, although in many locations, there's a pretty good chance that the inner lanes there, which would be the regional traffic and bus rapid transit lanes, could go over the cross street as opposed to under the cross street. But some permutation of that relationship, having a bridge where currently there's an accurate intersection with a stoplight. Next slide, please. And so to go along with those interchanges, which would also be bus rapid transit stops, is that there would be 4 multimodal districts defined along the corridor where there's land use policy recommendations that then in the future, there would be taller, denser, mixed-use development that is supportive of transit use and provides the destinations that transit riders are going to want to go to. So more housing, more employment, and more shopping and services. Next slide, please. And this is basically what that could look like for this example area of around Mini City. So that's the area between Calvary Drive and where Millbrook and New Hope Road come together. And so, basically that where there's, and there would be, we're proposing a bus rapid transit station at Millbrook and New Hope. And so that, those areas would become more walkable, have a denser street grid, and that all facilitates people using the transit. And then again, having more places to safely access from the transit. Next slide, please. And so then within those multimodal districts, with that denser street grid, that also gives us more opportunities for bicycle and of course pedestrian facilities, because any new streets that are constructed will have sidewalks on both sides. And with the bikeway streets that y'all have proposed and are now in front of the city council, many of those new streets would also have protected bicycle lanes in the future. And that gives us a great opportunity to really build out a stronger bicycle and pedestrian network in these areas. Next slide, please. And so this is an example, again, for Mini City of additional proposed streets on the city street plan. So the dotted lines here would be those additional streets that would fill in that grid. Currently, the blocks around Capitol Boulevard, the blocks of public streets are very large, although there are many private drives that go through parking lots that pedestrian and cyclists are using. But when those are proposed to be public streets and as they're built through redevelopment, they would have sidewalks, and then with the bikeway streets, protected bicycle lanes in many instances. Next slide, please. And so, and this is the example south of there. So south of the split of Lewisburg Road, basically between Traywood Road and Buffalo Road and New Hope Church Road. So again, seeing those dotted lines, providing that denser street grid, more opportunities for connections that are not riding a bicycle on Capitol Boulevard, but a parallel network where you can travel along Capitol Boulevard with quick access to those employment destinations and to the denser residential areas. Next slide, please. And so based on those multimodal districts and the additional street density, we can then propose to prioritize bicycle projects in our capital improvement program over the next 10 to 20 years to basically say, as Capitol Boulevard is converted to that multi-way boulevard, as we implement BRT, if that is planned and funded, then we can also be building out that bicycle network at the same time, and really creating a robust multimodal transportation environment in this area. Next slide, please. And here again, you can see those additional streets proposed in the street plan, providing, again, the additional network for the bicycle lanes as well. Next slide, please. And so the way that plays out with the plan report that's going to the city council is that there is the planned bicycle facilities map in the comprehensive plan. So along with the plan report, which is up for adoption after after planning commission and city council review, there is also a set of comprehensive plan amendments where the recommendations of the plan report are then put into the comprehensive plan and can be used as a basis for capital improvement program and other projects to make those recommendations a reality. Next slide, please. And so we can just get a little bit closer at the north end. And you see the dotted lines are the new proposed bicycle connections in the bicycle proposed bicycle facilities map. And so a lot of the ones that we're prioritizing through this report are actually already in that map. And so the report is just getting a little bit more information about what is the sequence of when we want to fund those and when we want to try to make those connections. And then this amendment is really just adding those additional facilities that would make use of that denser street grid. Next slide, please. And this is the south end. And so again, you can see that there's really a strong emphasis on having an ability to travel north and south with multiple options closer in to Capitol, as well as farther out through the neighborhoods and reaching points to the east and west, connecting to Atlantic Avenue, which will also have a multi-use path in the future, and to the Greenway Trail that is to the east. And then providing those connections east and west across Capitol Boulevard. So basically creating a way for people to travel to regionally and locally through this network. And so we'll go to the next slide. So that's basically what you'll see in the plan report and those comprehensive plan amendments. The plan report is live now on the study webpage. So if you search Capital North on the city website, raleighnc.gov, you can find that whole report. You can read it yourself. We'll have the comprehensive plan amendments probably up by the end of this week. And then, like I said, this is on the city council agenda for October the 5th for them to, they can either keep it at the city council and take a deeper dive into it, or they can refer it directly to the planning commission. And we are expecting a planning commission review to start at the November 18th committee of the whole meeting of the planning commission. So that's all I have for you tonight, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Anagnost, are you looking for a vote or any sort of action from the commission this evening?
I hadn't planned to request any kind of recommendation, but certainly if you feel motivated to make some kind of, vote of support or even, particular things that you think are good or not so good, I mean, that's your choice as a commission.
Thank you. I'm trying to get my grid view back. Here we go. All right. I would ask commissioners to keep your questions and comments focused on the bicycle plan portion. There's plenty of other stuff to get into, but we'll leave that for our individual pursuits. Does anybody have any comments or questions? I noticed on the maps, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Gellenbeck, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Otwell. Yes, I do have a question, and it's regarding the bicycle and pedestrian pathways that go over the highway.
Yes.
What design elements are you putting in there that will make it a comfortable, secure environment that would encourage all ages and abilities to use the bicycle infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so there's a couple different answers to that. The first one is that the city has an existing policy that says grade separated interchange must have a protected bicycle facility that passes through it if it does have a bicycle facility. And so when we are working with North Carolina Department of Transportation on those projects, that would be one of the things that the city would request be included in those projects. And we do have in the plan report, we have design drawings from our subconsultant Tool Design that show how we can implement those protected bicycle lanes in those interchanges. So those would be for the cross streets. So a street like, say, Millbrook or Buffalo, where it crosses Capitol, would have a protected bicycle facility to cross over under Capitol Boulevard. The other part of it is because the multi-way boulevard splits the width of Capitol Boulevard into lanes that go at the same grade as the surrounding development on the outside, those local lanes. And then the regional lanes that go under or over the cross street, that allows the interchange bridge to actually create shorter crossing distances. So a pedestrian approaching an interchange, first of all, is never going to have to come near the regional lanes that with the highest volume and highest speed traffic. They will completely avoid those lanes. They'll come to the bridge, they'll cross the northbound set of lanes if they're coming from the east, which would be typically at most 3 lanes to cross, and we are proposing that there not be right turn slip lanes, so no free flow traffic. If the light is red, the traffic is stopped. So come to a 3-lane crossing, cross to the bridge that goes over the regional lanes. That bridge also serves as a large waiting area if you can't make it across in one signal cycle, and then get to the other side of the bridge, again, crossing typically at most 3 lanes, and then you're on the other side. So shorter crossing distances, larger waiting areas, and fewer interactions with the fast moving lanes, and then those protected bicycle facilities.
Well, I sure do appreciate you describing it. It was a little bit challenging for me to conceptualize it. I definitely did not feel any sense of comfort in the designs when you described it as me riding a bike across 3 lanes of travel and if I can't get across it fast enough, all 6 lanes, I have this little waiting spot. I really appreciate the challenge that the the DOTs are up against in trying to blend these vast different moving vehicles so that it's secure for all users. But I do, as a resident and a taxpayer, I am concerned about the investment in this design that really isn't going to encourage bicycle ridership, because it just doesn't sound like it's going to be a secure environment. You're not going to meet the majority who consider themselves interested but concerned. And that's the whole issue that we're trying to accomplish, is to meet the majority. So we provide the infrastructure to diversify our transportation. That's really what the goal is. So thank you for trying, and I appreciate your attention to listening to my concerns.
And Ms. Gallenbeck, one thing I'll offer is that at this point in the process, we're developing the concept plan for the corridor. So really it's more about where it is that we'll have facilities, but we haven't yet gotten into the weeds of designing the facilities. The plan expresses an intent to have protected facilities at every crossing. The details of those designs would not happen until we had a funded project, start working on that. And the work that the commission has done recently in terms of looking at cross sections will now inform that design process when we get to that point. And you're correct that the interested but concerned rider is our target market that we're looking to improve the cycling environment to attract more of that ridership.
I appreciate that, Mr. Lamb. Thank you for confirming it.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hatchell.
Thank you so much. And yeah, this is a very challenging issue and location, and it's a lot of concern. And I feel my biggest concern is that this diverting bicycle traffic, in particular to the secondary streets, it kind of works for through traffic. But I think when I think about bicyclists wanting to use the mass transit or going to the same destination that the cars want, it seems like, you know, you're asking people to make these huge figure eights that I'm not sure are really that practical. So my concern is that, you know, if I am riding the mass transit with my bicycle, am I then supposed to go a couple streets back to ride, you know, a couple blocks? You know, I guess it doesn't seem extremely practical, except for through riders. And that makes perfect sense that they really should be somewhere else. But how people who are using bicycles and mass transit to go to the same destination as those in cars, I guess I'm with Mary Jo. I'm not quite being able to picture that.
Yeah, I think there's a limitation that we're faced with in this process, that we don't have a very strong existing street grid that in terms of streets that pass through the commercial areas of this corridor. So most of the commercial areas that have any depth, which is typically, it's more on the north end and the south end, there are essentially no public north-south streets through those commercial areas. It's like one or two, unless you go about a half a mile off the corridor. So until there's redevelopment that we can use the street plan to apply public street construction requirements, we have to rely on the public street network that we already have, or have some expectation that folks are going to ride bicycles through parking lots. I mean, that's the reality that we're facing. And so the things that we can do are make the improvements on the public streets that are there, which is what we're proposing as the first priority. The earliest priority in time in our set of prioritizations for bicycle lanes is the existing neighborhood streets get bicycle lanes first, and then going to the street projects for Capitol Boulevard itself, bringing in those cross street connections over or under Capitol Boulevard with those protected bicycle facilities to create the east-west connection. And then as redevelopment occurs, those new public streets that currently are just private driveways and parking lots that have no pedestrian and bicycle facilities, and a bicycle and pedestrian is simply traveling in a vehicle lane, we have to replace those with public streets through redevelopment. So we have to work through the city's legal authority and through the way that development occurs in the real world. And that's what we're basically building on that structure of what we have to work with. But I will say that the Capitol Boulevard design itself has a 12-foot sidewalk on each side. That's not an ideal bicycle facility, but folks are already bicycling on the 6-foot sidewalk on Capitol Boulevard, so 12 feet is at least some improvement. And again, I do think the protected bicycle facility on the cross street, when those come in through those projects, is a major improvement compared to today.
Mr. Anagnost, at our last meeting, the BPAC voted to request to retain the separated bicycle designation along Capitol Boulevard. And I'm reading the proposed T3 map correctly, that at this point the project still recommends a removal of that designation?
That's correct. That's been a really difficult compromise that we have had to work through during the course of this process, which is that the amount of right-of-way that's needed for the bus rapid transit, which we believe is a really strong priority, does make it very difficult to achieve a protected bicycle facility at the same time. And particularly at the south end of this corridor, the additional right-of-way that's going to be required for bus rapid transit is going to have substantial impacts on the private property there. And those are small parcels. Those parcels are not very deep. And that also is the highest concentration of small and local businesses on the corridor. And so, you know, it's very difficult for us. We want to have the benefits of all of the modes of transportation having the highest quality facility, but we have to balance that with the very same people who are going to benefit from that access to mobility are also the ones who need to have that economic environment be healthy to support their businesses and their jobs. And so it really is something that we have worked through that. You know, we've gone over that question probably about 5 times during this process. So how can we get a full bicycle facility on Capitol Boulevard? And it's just, there's just not a lot of room to work with on the south end.
I also am a little bit confused with the document posted on the agenda. I see the T3 map, which is pretty clear. We've seen that before. And there's another map that has greenways and bikeway pedestrian project phases copy as 2 different legend items. Are you familiar with the map that I'm speaking about and what it's trying to tell us?
I think I have the agenda pulled up here. Let me make sure. There is an excerpt from the plan report itself that basically provides a sequence of prioritization. So when should those projects be funded over time? So there
I think that might be this map. It has near, mid, and long term, but it does not show the same routes as shown on the T3 plan facilities. So I was wondering, are those just not in the prioritization list, like some of the stuff along, like, what road am I looking at here? Pine Knoll Drive. On T3 map, it shows add separated bikeway as a recommendation, but on the phasing map, there's no line work there.
Yeah, that map is basically things that we are adding that are proposing to add to T3. And there is some overlap, but yeah, that's basically, it's kind of a complementary set of facilities.
Okay, yeah, but it looks like there's stuff on the T3 map that is not in any of your phasing in the phasing map. So is it just not been included in that
so
map?
there are existing facilities on T3 that we're not proposing to remove or relocate. So those would just be there. Those, you know, some of them are already on the map.
Right, so T3 recommends adding a separated bikeway designation on Pine Knoll Drive. And on the phasing map, there's nothing on Pine Knoll Drive. There's other examples of this kind of line we're missing. So but Pine Knoll Drive is the one where I can pull the street name out really quick.
Okay, I'd have to check this against the map that's in the final plan report and make sure it's the final one that we use. This might be an earlier version. I would say I recommend visiting the webpage and reading the plan report. That would be the version that's going to City Council. They should be the same, but we may have made some tweaks.
Mr. Caruso, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I just had I guess a follow-up question or clarification on the facility on Capitol Boulevard itself. I mean, if we're talking about, if the plan effectively recommends removing the designation or just, well, I guess it has it now, so removing the designation. You mentioned before that a 12-foot path, and I mean, there's already sidewalk, which already has a lot of people on it, both on bike and foot. So what does the plan recommend as far as facility on Capitol Boulevard if we're removing the bikeway designation? Would there just be a 12-foot multi-use path, or what does the plan recommend instead of the bikeway?
It's the recommendation is a 12-foot sidewalk on each side, and it would be on the outside of the local set of lanes. And so the cross section is the 12-foot sidewalk, the local lanes, and then a 6-foot outer median, then the regional lanes, and then the space for the bus rapid transit lanes. So that's basically now, as Eric said, this is conceptual. So when these projects are entered into an NCDOT funding mechanism, and then go into that design and engineering process, there's going to be much more details that are going to be worked out through that. But that's the recommended section is a 12-foot sidewalk on each side.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I guess we're not getting into this level of detail, but I mean, in my mind, if we make it asphalt instead of concrete, then we have a multi-use path, and then that kind of gets us ideally mostly the bike facility that we're looking for.
So just quick clarification, Joe, the asphalt concrete has been traditional in the city, but there are a number of other places around the region that are doing cement, and they're working fine. The Davis Drive side path in Cary is a good example of that. So it's not necessarily the material. Really, the only place there's a major impact that's different is if it's a multi-use path, you use white crosswalks. You can't use the green paint. That's solely for the bikeway. So we have those around the city already, the greenways where you've got greenway crossings. You've got bikes using the white crosswalks.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that was my main comment. I mean, as far as the bike facility piece of this plan, I mean, I think that like Dwight mentioned, I think that's kind of the main issue that we've been reviewing as far as this plan. I mean, at least speaking for myself, I think the street plan additions and building out a street grid in this area will have a significant improvement in traffic flow and in connectivity for bike and pedestrian travel.
And just for the record, if I can jump in, I forgot, I didn't get introduced earlier. I'm Paul Black. I'm City of Raleigh staff. So just for the record.
Sorry, Paul. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. So what happens with the funding for the bikeways if they get moved out to sort of parallel but more off of the Capitol Boulevard frontage streets? Is the funding sort of decoupled from any kind of state or federal funding that goes along with building the highway or through Capitol? I'm just concerned that we may not be at that point yet, but will funding still be there to build out a separated bikeway on these parallel streets if we remove that designation along Capitol?
No, it shouldn't be a problem, because at this point, what we're doing is outlining where these facilities would be per an adopted plan. So once the city council adopts this becomes part of city policy, and that's part of what gives us ability to work with NCDOT to demonstrate that it's part of a locally adopted plan. And now under the new complete streets policy that DOT has, there'll be some automatic requirements of those facilities be included in the designs when such a project comes forward. So it doesn't affect the funding mechanism at all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Anagnost, I'm looking at the same map that I'm trying to suss out here at the bottom, and it shows the boundaries of the Capitol North project encompass the I-440 and Capitol Boulevard interchanges. Is that correct?
That's right.
Are we going to be able to pull pedestrian facilities across I-440?
So there's a pending NCDOT project for the 440 Capitol Boulevard interchange that was fairly far along in the design, and then was suspended due to the budget issues that NCDOT is having. And so, but yes, we were working closely with them to advocate for a high quality pedestrian facility through that interchange. That is one of the text policy recommendations in the plan report, is that there be a pedestrian facility there. We don't have very specific recommendations for that interchange because we are leaving that up to the NCDOT design process. So we weren't really trying to use this plan to insert any ideas for that. We thought that they were going to happen in parallel, and that they would probably, when we started this plan, there was a good chance that that design would be almost done by now. But since it's been suspended, that's kind of changed. But we're not proposing, we're recommending that there be a high quality crossing, but we're not proposing anything specific.
Thank you. Mr. Black, and then I think Ms. Gellenbeck had her hand up too.
So just very quickly, could we potentially rebrand the 12-foot sidewalks as multi-use paths? It's more than the one side 10-foot we're getting with New Bern BRT, and we are considering that a separated bikeway. So John, I don't know if that's something we could consider, but that would allow us to leave it in the comp plan as a separated bike facility and still meet exactly what the plan's already asking for.
That's an interesting question, and that's one of the details that we've talked a lot about with that 12-foot sidewalks is whether we want to have a planting area. There's obviously the clear space that NCDOT requires along the side of the lanes itself to not allow trees at certain posted speed limits because of the potential for collision or vehicles to crash into them. So that would basically push the trees to the outside of the sidewalk area. But I think one of the messages we got from the community was a desire for more green space and more vegetation along Capitol Boulevard. And we know, of course, obviously the urban heat island effect and that there are inequitable impacts of that certainly in the city of Raleigh. And so I think that's a good question. And I would just want to think that through in terms of can we provide that and still have a planting area that allows?
Well, it shouldn't have any effect unless you're including street tree grids in the 12 feet width. But if you're actually building 12 foot wide sidewalk, the length of it, we should still be fine. And in fact, if we had to have some encroachment, we go down to, I think, 8 feet in a few tight spots on New Bern Avenue. It's really more of a matter of how we want to brand it. And there might be some tweaks at some of the ramps to make sure that bikes are accommodated. But in terms of the actual width and run, it ought to work.
Okay, well, I'm happy to follow up on that with you, Paul. We can talk about it some more.
Well, is this a good moment for you to jump in? Because you guys have actually.
All right, I will note that we've been on the comment section of this presentation for.
Of course, this one I'm about to go twice.
Yeah, so please keep it brief, Mary Jo.
But they did lead me in very nicely to what I'd like to propose, and I do have a curiosity why we are adding the additional vehicle lane infrastructure into the space. So we talked about Capitol Boulevard. We talked about a 12-foot wide multi-use path, and then another vehicle two-way traffic infrastructure, and then getting to the businesses and the residencies. And I don't understand why we're building more infrastructure for vehicles. I'd like to use that vehicle lane that is on the other side of the 12-foot pathway and dedicate the 12-foot space to improving in the aesthetics, the green, and dedicate that land use for active transportation infrastructure. I think that is really what is needed, that we should be increasing the amount of land dedicated to that infrastructure. And then when you do that, that is really when you're going to have the turning point. If we're going into that mixed use development along this highway, and we want to encourage them to use other modes of transportation other than vehicle, we have got to create that environment that's going to induce it. And we also know that those types of modes of transportation spend a lot more money locally than any vehicle that's rolling through the space. So I don't know why we're building more vehicle lanes and not dedicating that land to active transportation infrastructure. So that's what I'm proposing.
Yeah, we have heard that from folks in the community, and one of the things that we have to keep in mind with this plan is that none of these projects can really happen without North Carolina Department of Transportation's assistance, financial assistance. And so we did want to propose a roadway design that we thought they would want to fund. And part of that is based on, is it going to move the vehicles that we're projecting that are going to want to come through this corridor in the future? And so we think we do have a proposal that NCDOT, and we've met with them multiple times. We think we have a proposal that they are interested in funding, and that can then have the benefits locally of bus rapid transit lanes, or at least right-of-way room for it, and then those additional bicycle and pedestrian facilities that we discussed before. So, I mean, that's kind of the balancing act that we're trying to walk here. Certainly the city council can say that they don't think that's necessary and they'd like a smaller design. But that's I think a risk that staff didn't feel comfortable putting on this plan.
So is it still potential that we can do that? Is it a plan that you can propose in addition to this other one?
I think at the end of the day, the city needs to have a single proposal for how we'd like to see this roadway designed in the future. That's pretty important to seeking funding. But like I said, the city council, it's their ultimate decision whether to make this official city policy for use in proposals like that. As we've seen, the Six Forks Corridor study is an example where the city council did bring up the 6-lane versus 4-lane question towards the end of the study. And that was kind of decided at the very end based on some final dialogue with the community. So yeah, that can happen. I think what, my message for right now is that staff has a proposal that we think makes sense in the most ways, that with the most factors that we see. But that the city council has the authority to see it a different way.
Okay, I'd like us to wrap up this conversation. If possible, please.
To make it short, I will stop there.
And I encourage you to bring up these kind of thoughts. Again, like, this is a very narrow issue that we're being asked to weigh in on here. And so these larger issues are important. I would like us to focus on bringing those up in board comments and in our personal lobbying. Absolutely important. I agree with you. I am really disappointed that we're building such an expensive facility and we can't fit the bicycle facility in there. It's really discouraging to see the road get widened and then here we can't have a bike lane because of the equity and the land being taken. So I look forward to seeing what you get together with Paul on and seeing if we can come to a compromise, and hope that we can support this going forward. Thank you very much for your time and detailed information, being willing to come here and stand in front of the firing squad. So
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
And if there's nothing else, if anybody else has any final comments, then let's go ahead and take a quick break, please. It's 6:56. We'll go ahead and let's break till 5 after. If that's okay with you, Mr. Lamb. I'll see y'all back here in just a little while. Next up on the presentation list, we have Chris Nickfar with the Raleigh Parks Department, and he will be giving us a presentation on the Greenway Master Plan update, and I will let him take it from there.
Great, thank you, Dwight. Can everyone hear me okay? Just shake your heads. Yep, awesome. Okay, as Dwight mentioned, I'm going to give you all an update on the Greenway Master Plan this evening. Eric, will you be starting? There he goes, starting a slideshow here. Okay, so I believe the last update I gave to this group was this past December, and there's been a tremendous amount of work that's been completed since that time. So, and I know that there is some that's in this presentation that's a little bit repetitive, but since it's been so long since I've presented to you all, I thought a little refresher of some of the points would be a good idea. There, Eric, if you go ahead and go to the next slide. So I'll start with a little bit of history of the Greenway Master Plan. The first Greenway Master Plan was adopted by City Council in 1976 with 77 miles. That plan was subsequently updated in 1986 and again in 1989. Each time the system grew. The 1989 plan is the most recent document that we've been working from, and that plan includes 270 miles of Greenway. Go to the next slide, please. So this is an overview of our approach to this project, and it just lists the different touch points we have throughout the process for the plan. So we started with an existing review of existing plans, existing conditions analysis, 3 different phases of community engagement, the third of which is what we are in today, development of a project prioritization matrix, which is the first time that we've done that in the history of the Greenway planning, and then finally draft final report. Next slide, please. So going through the existing plans review, there are 28 different plans and documents throughout the city that mention anything related to the Greenway in terms of recommended facilities and our area plans, to connections to bike facilities and the bicycle master plan and more. So there was a lot of information to review besides what was just in our previous version of the Greenway Master Plan, because essentially all of the recommendations in all of these documents are combined to make the Greenway Master Plan. Next slide. With our existing conditions analysis, we wanted to see what the conditions were on the ground today. So we looked at where there are sidewalk gaps, where there are gaps in transit connections to the Greenway system, what the slopes and grade challenges might be in different areas, what our existing policy is regarding implementation of funding of the Greenway trails today. Next slide. And then we developed a draft prioritization criteria. And as I mentioned, this is the first time in the history of the Greenway planning that we have a very detailed way to prioritize how projects should be implemented. And this prioritization is based on there's 9 key criteria that are here listed here. So we have future density, existing access to existing Greenway trails, social equity, racial equity, overall level of park service, and connections to transit and more. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary of our first phase of public outreach. This was our initial outreach where we were asking the public to basically tell us what their existing concerns were, what they would like to see happen between existing trails, new trails, trail maintenance and operations. We have a 28-member steering committee that has guided this process from the very beginning, representing a diverse range of interests and groups. We had an online survey seeking public input that was initially planned to probably be listed for about 30 days, but this project kicked off in January of 2020, and then shortly after that, COVID-19 really it changed everything in our plans for how we were going to do public outreach. So we ended up extending that online survey for 5 months. So it started in March of last year and went all the way through until the beginning of August. We had over 4,000 participants participate in that survey, which I think is fantastic. We had 14 different focus group meetings. Each one of those focus group meetings was covered a specific topic of interest. So we had a developer-oriented focus group meeting. We had one for people with disabilities. We had one we actually had a few for city of staff or staff of the city of Raleigh and different departments that have an interest in the Greenway system. We had one with staff from state parks. So we really covered a lot of very specific focused interest areas by doing that. We were able to have a tabling event at the Raleigh Half Marathon right before COVID shut everything down. And then in addition to what we had done at that point, we did direct outreach to a list of 40 different community organizations that were sort of oriented towards people of color and people of lower economic means. Next slide, please. For phase 2, we got to a point where we had a couple of documents already produced. We had our previous plans review document, our existing conditions analysis, an overview of the public outreach that had been conducted by that point, and our draft public or project prioritization matrix that we wanted to sort of share with the public and give the public an opportunity to review what had been done by that point and tell us if we were on the right track, if there was anything that we were missing. So we did another online survey for that, and that was between February and March earlier this year. We had 228 people participate in that, and 90% of those people indicated that they were in approval of what had been conducted and the path that we were on at that point. We did expect to get less input on that specific phase of public outreach, just because we know that the two things that people are probably most interested in are providing their input on what they would like to see, and then ultimately providing input on what is ultimately recommended in the draft plan. Next slide. And that brings us to where we are sort of today, where we do have a draft plan document that was released at the end of August. And it covers everything from new trails to trail reinvestment, to amenities, environmental recommendations, safety and security, funding, maintenance and operations. A lot of recommendations in detail that we have not had in the past. So it's tremendously an improvement on the document that we've been working from. Next slide. And here we are with phase 3 of our public outreach. We launched an online survey for the draft plan at the end of August. It's up today, and it will stay up until the end of this month, September 27th. The online survey is accessed from our project website, and you can just Google Greenways 2020, and it'll be the first link that comes up. As of earlier today, we had 1,045 participants in the survey. What's exciting to me is that there's probably about 60% who are coming into this project for the first time. So that shows to me that we're engaging more and more people every time we seek to do outreach on this plan. Next slide, please. And moving forward, this is just an outline of the additional opportunities that people have had and will have to provide input. With people, vaccinations going up with COVID-19, we've been able to participate and piggyback off of community events that were already planned for other purposes. And the 3 community events that we participated in where we were able to provide project information and steer folks to the online survey are listed here at the top. So we tabled at the Dix Edge Study community event, the Pullen Arts Center dedication, and then this past Friday, the Peach Road open house. And we had a total of 3 virtual open houses planned. Our first one of those was last Tuesday. That was last Tuesday morning. We planned on doing 1 weekday daytime, 1 weekday evening, and then 1 weekend time to give people the greatest amount of opportunities to work around their own schedules and be able to participate. The first virtual open house that we had last week was the first virtual open house that I have done as a project manager. And to be honest, I was a little nervous because I've never done that before. I wasn't sure how successful it would be, but it was a tremendous success. We had about 30 people that attended that meeting. There were some really great questions and answers that were provided through that. I think more than anything, it was an opportunity to educate people on what is in the plan, because it is a tremendous amount of information to be able to absorb looking at it online. Our next virtual open house is tomorrow night. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll have the last one this coming weekend on Saturday. Next slide. So as far as next steps go, we provided an update to Parks Board last week. We'll be going back to them again in October to review what we heard in our third round of public outreach, and also to get their input on potential changes to the document before it's finalized. We'll go back to them in November with the updated version based on what we heard from them and public outreach. And then ultimately, we're planning to take it to work session with City Council in December. I think they are probably likely to take action a month later. During their January meeting, they'll probably want that 30 days to be able to review the document themselves. There is a chance that they could defer it to a committee, but what I'm told is that they are not likely to do that, but we'll see how that goes. So we're looking ultimately at an adoption sometime in early of 2022. Next slide, please. That is the presentation that I have for you this evening, and we can just open it up to questions and discussion. Dwight, I can't hear you. I don't know if others can. Is your pull your microphone down? There you go.
Mechanical issue.
Yeah.
I was going to say thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that there's questions. So who would like to go ahead and get it started? Or maybe there's not questions because it was perfect. Well, I will say that we were honored to be participants in this process, and we had several commissioners that attended a series of meetings over the past couple of years, participated in these groups, and it was a pleasure watching the park staff and the consultant, Jared Draper, I believe was the lead consultant from Tool. It was just a pleasure to be a part of the process, and I really like what came out. And this document took way more time than than I had during the on Sunday to look through it, and I'm just blown away. It's great.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Yes, similar comments. I looked through this in some detail and just commend Mr. Nick Farr and the rest of the team for how much work went into this. I can just imagine trying to compile all the information in 28 existing plans into, pulling everything from there into a Greenway master plan. I think that probably has something to do with the difficulty. Probably has something to do with the amount of time it's been since our last Greenway master plan update. So I really like the recommendation of updating the master plan every 5 years. I think that makes a lot of sense. There's a ton more in here that I could say that I really like, but I won't go into such detail. I am thrilled to see that there is a new greenway proposed along Lake Wheeler Road crossing I-40. So that's something I've been wishing for a long time. So I love that. So thank you.
I just have a pep rally with all the things I like, but it would take too long. So is Doug Johnson, is Mr. Johnson still on the line? I believe he had a comment or a question about the Greenway proposal. Douglas Johnston. If we could promote.
Hello, can you hear me?
Doug. Yes,
okay,
sir.
good. I was having a little trouble with the starting mute. Well, I'm first of all embarrassed even to have a little intro like this because I can see how terribly busy you are. Cutting to the chase, there is no better master plan for anything, greenways, parks, or whatever, than this one. It is a brilliant business plan and a design plan and a historical document wrapped into one. And if we can't go gangbusters with this, then it's going to never happen. But that's my middle name. But I would like to see some special attention given to appearance in it. And there may have been more than I thought, but I didn't see some of the important parts that I think should be there, particularly the notion of a visual resource inventory of the Greenway. And the Greenway has a different kind of context than the active streets and that sort of thing, but they do play a part in the appearance thing. And I've sent an email to John after his response so I can get a better handle on that. But I really feel like the streets and parkways and things have a different kind of orientation where functionality may trump a lot of the appearance things we like to do. Having said that, my request to you is whoever it was you sent to the Greenway Special Task Force, if they had any interest in chatting with me and finding out what some of the examples I have that provoke my interest in appearance, I think that's the quickest way. I mean, either they'll look at the examples and the solutions, which are, I think, for the most part, quite simple, direct, and long-term, not very costly, certainly not costly in terms of the impact that they can have. So the ask is, can we get somebody to look at visual resource inventory with me, visual resource tools, and they fall into two categories, repair and mitigation, which is really buffering and tinkering with the view. Certainly not a zero-sum game, because whatever you do for the Greenway's appearance will help the property owners along it. So it looks like a great opportunity for showing how we can work together. The other part is part of this plan, and it is to encourage land use opportunities and different things that might be more under the category rather than repair, sort of protection and preservation. And you can see a number of examples of where we probably, no question, we certainly could have done a better job with the developers along the way of the Greenway. And those things are still before us as great opportunities for everybody. So that's 2 minutes worth, and I'll leave it at that, although I could probably bore you until the dark hours of the morning. But I've had good connections with many of you. Nick has always been a good ear to listen to, and Brian, Susan, my brief conversation with you, Dwight, was very useful. Somehow, I think years ago, I had a conversation with Joe about a concern I had on Morgan Street, and lo and behold, I find out that something's going to happen there. So I have the greatest confidence in this group. It's one of these committees where a lot of times a committee you think is the whole is less than the sum of the parts, but it looks like this one, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and that really is a credit to your interest in bicycling. One quick thing about me, I am a Greenway volunteer. Over the past 3 months, I've had many dozens of conversations with people along the Greenway, and it goes pretty much like this. We're standing somewhere and we look ahead of us and behind us and to either side, and it is better than you could have ever have planned for. Maybe below us, the surface is not perfect, but the context is really great, and people take it for granted. So you don't hear them bringing it up as a concern until you say, well, have you seen what's happened here or there? And they say, oh, is it in jeopardy? And I say, not necessarily. Most of the things that are apparent now can be fixed relatively easily. And in the future, there are mechanisms to protect them. So it looks like it's just a matter of finding how this question fits into your overall structure, and I'd be happy to learn from you where I should direct my attention.
Ms. Hatchell, would you like to respond?
Yeah, it's so great to have you here with us tonight, Doug, and I appreciate all your comments about appearance, and I think that's really is a very exciting opportunity. So I would love to ask Chris, I'm not sure BPAC takes on appearance, but I would like to ask Chris to respond to your comments a little bit, but also I would like for Chris to maybe let us in on some of the public art opportunities that are happening associated with greenways as well. And I think that I totally agree with everything that Doug has said to us, that there's a lot of opportunity for appearance and betterments. So yeah, what do you think we should do with his comments, Nick? I'm Chris, I'm sorry.
Well, I would suggest maybe working through Parks Board, because Parks Board has a Greenway committee and they're always looking for ways to be able to improve the system and make recommendations. So I would say maybe try to contact them, and I feel like they probably would be interested in that. And I think this really gets down to screening. And there really aren't any screening requirements that I'm aware of if a developer is building something that backs up to the Greenway system. The only thing that they're required to not do is not encroach into our easement. But if there isn't any screening already there and they're not adding any, then you're going to see whatever it is that they build. So that would be my suggestion to address that. And I also did see that you provided the comment in the online survey, so thank you for that. The other question, Susan, was about public art. And what were you? Can you elaborate on your?
You know, at the Parks Board meeting, what was that, just last Thursday? There was a talk about the public art aspect of painting the sewer risers and just various other things. I know that there's along the Neuse River Greenway, there was some public art incorporated into the wayfinding and the signs and the pavement and things like that. So I was just wondering if there is, you know, could you give us a little bit more detail, or should we maybe ask more questions about how public art could be a bigger part of greenways? It seems like it's already sort of there.
It is. I mean, it's considered an amenity, and it is addressed in the amenities section of the Greenway Master Plan, but it really is led by a different section than us. It falls into the purview of the city's art plan. And that has to be a balance of art throughout the city. So on the Greenway and, you know, everywhere else. And I think for them, it's really just a matter of funding and the opportunities to apply public art at different locations. I think the one thing that has been interesting to me learning about public art is that most of it is temporary. You know, when I think of public art, I guess I think more of like statues and sculptures and that type of thing. But my understanding is that most of the public art that is, I guess, implemented through our city staff are things that are more temporary, like the painting of the sewer manholes and that type of thing. As far as incorporating more of it, I do believe that they are updating the city's art plan. And I would just encourage everyone to participate in that, and sort of, if you're interested in encouraging public art on the Greenway system, then make your voice heard through that effort.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Ms. Gellenbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Otwell. Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Nick, for the presentation. I wanted to hear about information on dark sky lighting, or lighting the Greenway to enable more people access after work for exercising.
Yeah, so that is one of the things that we've heard most from people, that among the amenities that they're looking for us to provide. Now, for us, it's always it's a tough thing to balance, because you might be aware that the initial reason for the Greenway system is for preservation of environmentally sensitive stream corridors. So, you know, we want to impact those corridors with as little lighting as possible. But at the same time, we have this growing demand for using the greenway system for transportation purposes. And if people are expected to use it as transportation, they're going to be doing it for commuting a lot too, which especially in the winter when it gets dark really early, in order to make that a feasible option, you have to provide lighting. So the master plan recommends strategic placement of strategic lighting. But that's really good at where that's going to be is going to require more analysis. The plan does develop a new functional classification system for the greenway. So we have Oak City trails, scenic trails and loops, and also neighborhood trails. The Oak City trails are the trails that are more likely to carry a heavier volume of transportation users versus just recreation. The scenic and loop trails, as they might sound by the title, are probably mostly people using it for recreation. And then the neighborhood trails, those are the trails that connect the neighborhoods to either the Oak City trails or the scenic and loop trails. So if we're looking at lighting, probably the trails that would be designated as an Oak City trail would be the ones that we would be looking at least in the more immediate term for lighting. And those would probably be like the Crabtree Creek Trail, Walnut Creek, House Creek, and then the segment of the Neuse River Trail that connects the Crabtree Creek Trail to the Walnut Creek Trail. Those are just the trails that connect a lot of places. And so they're the more likely to be the ones that people are using for transportation. Now, when we do get to the point of implementing lighting, we are going to have to do a pretty extensive analysis of the different types of lighting options available to make sure that whatever recommendations we're providing are impact the environment around it as little as possible. And we'll probably end up with an array of different lighting options that, could be just like dark sky approved lighting down to, there have been some examples in other places, especially more urban areas where they do like glow in the dark paint, or they have the glow in the dark pebbles that is embedded into the surface of the trail. And I recently read an article about a trail in Iowa that has that, and they apparently last for 20 years and they glow at night. And obviously you wouldn't want that in a forested area, but maybe if it's in a more urban area where there are homes and businesses and stuff that are close by and you can actually see those things from where you are on the trail, that might be a nice option, low impact option.
Well, I like the idea of actually limiting the trails, limiting the lighting on certain trails. Not just, and I'd like to expand the conversation outside of just transportation, but also to include people who are looking for recreation after business hours. And like you said, in the winter months, it does get darker. If you are to concentrate this light, it actually increases security. The more people who are using the system, the safer it is. And as a female, I'm always looking for environments that I feel comfortable and safe in because of the fact that females are more likely to be attacked by predator criminals than the other gender. And so if I'm in a space, I want one that is very busy. It just got rebuffered.
Did we lose her?
She's back now. Mary Jo, you see us? We can see you.
You can see me or Mary? There she is. Okay. Yeah, she's back.
While we wait for her audio to come back on, this
I am. Everybody left me.
Yeah, we did. Inconsiderate of us. Would you like to finish your comment?
Thank you for your patience. I'm not quite sure what happened, but all of a sudden I was alone. No, yes, I do want to emphasize how important it is to create a space that is a safe environment for women. And by concentrating it, then you will increase the volume. And when there are more people, then it is a less desired space for a predator criminal to want to be. So I really encourage you to think not only for people who are transportation, but also mixing the two, concentrating recreation and transportation to accommodate people to use that greenway during the winter months. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
I think that about covers it for our questions or comments. They came to interview me, and I think they interviewed Beverly Clark too from the Greenway Committee as well. And I don't like being on TV, but I'm sorry. You guys deserve the credit. They should have been interviewing Chris Nickfar and Stephen Bentley and Jared Draper, but we're the ones that can just jump on the news at 20 minutes notice with no notes or approval. So we're what you get, and we tried to do you honest. I hope we did an okay job. You really should have been there to answer those questions, but thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you.
All right, moving on from the presentations, we come to the reports portion of the meeting, and first up will be the chair's report. Let's see what I have today for the chair's report. The first up on my list is to announce for those of you that don't know, and I'm going to steal Mr. Lamb's thunder one last time probably, that we will be losing our staff liaison and manager at the end of this year. Mr. Eric Lamb will be retiring at the end of December. He has made his official notice. And I just want to say that I have developed a great deal of respect and trust, and I hope friendship, and you're going to be sorely missed. I don't look forward to trying to build these kind of relationships again, and I don't know if it's possible. So good luck with your next one, and thank you so much for all you've done for us.
Thank you.
I will touch a little bit on what Ms. Hatchell brought up with some of the art issues. The manager of the BRT station artist selection committee has reached out to BPAC and asked for 3 volunteers, and we have provided. Nick Neptune and Pierre Tong and myself has volunteered to serve on 3 separate committees. We have the Glass Art Committee, which I believe Pierre will be joining, and I will be on the Concrete Art Committee. And Nick Neptune has agreed to be on the Railing Art Committee. And so we will keep you up to date on that. And I have a meeting coming up with our council liaison, and we're trying to schedule that in the next week or two. And I wanted to see if there are any issues that the commissioners would like to bring up and have addressed in that meeting. And you don't have to answer now because this is a surprise question, but please feel free to reach out to me over email or text or whatever over the next few days. And if anything comes up, we'll be happy to bring those up in the meeting, and I will have a report of that meeting at our next BPAC meeting. I believe that is, also on my chair report notes, I have that our illustrious vice chair was interviewed by the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and everybody should go look that up online and watch the interview and hear Nick Neptune talk about how important the East Coast Greenway and bicycle facilities are to our economy and our community. And I believe after that we can wrap up the chair's report and go on to committee reports. And I think I'll let Mr. Caruso, I'll ask for a little bit of help on all this. Mr. Caruso chaired up our ad hoc committee on the letter that we're going to send concerning the BRT. So Mr. Lamb, would it be possible to bring that letter up and display it on the screen? And Mr. Caruso, if you would be so good as to read it out for us. This is the letter that we're going to propose sending to council at be part of their next agenda, or whenever we can get it on their agenda as appropriate. Yep, surprise requests all around. So I'll set the context a little bit. This was in response to the presentation we got a couple months ago about the BRT routes for the New Bern section of the BRT to be implemented. And part of that was they were going to remove some bicycle lanes from downtown. There were some other things that we had some concerns with, and this letter is a response. I'll turn it over to Joe, chair of this committee.
All right, thank you. Do you want me to actually read everything or just provide a more detailed summary?
I think we should read it. I'd like to get a vote from the commission that this is our official letter and we want to send it out. It shouldn't take us too long if you don't mind.
Okay.
Excuse me, Dwight, I need to be recused, please.
I understand. I keep forgetting. Do we need to make a motion to do that, Mr. Lamb?
I believe you have previously recused Ms. Hatchell from BRT related items, so I think she can just step away.
All right. Well, we'll be here when you get back, Susan.
Okay, so like Dwight mentioned, this is a letter to the city council, kind of summarizing the recommendations from BPAC as far as the New Bern BRT project. So addressed to Mayor Baldwin and council members. During the May 17, 2021 Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission BPAC meeting, the commission received an update from Go Raleigh staff regarding the New Bern Bus Rapid Transit BRT project as part of the 65% design review. BPAC recognizes the many benefits BRT will bring to the community to expand transportation access and economic opportunity. The commission identified several design elements we would like to see included to preserve or improve important pedestrian and bicycle facilities that would not significantly impact the utility of the BRT network. There are three major issues the commission would like to see addressed in the design of the corridor. First bullet point, the proposal to remove existing bike lanes on Wilmington and Blunt Streets, subheading Blunt Street. The current BRT project proposal will remove the bike lane for 2 blocks between Edenton Street and Hargett Street. BPAC requests that the city retain the exclusive bike lane on this portion of Blunt Street and plan for BRT to operate in mixed traffic for the 2 blocks in question, subheading Wilmington Street. The commission sees no alternative to removing the existing bike lanes on Wilmington Street and adding a BRT lane without removing on-street parking between Martin Street and Morgan Street. BPAC recognizes that a shared lane for buses and bikes is undesirable and potentially unsafe for vulnerable populations and is not an acceptable long-term solution. However, BPAC recognizes this solution as a short-term compromise and urges the city to prioritize the creation of a safer separated bike facility on a parallel corridor such as Person Street and or Salisbury Street. The second bullet point, the loss of street trees and the safety and comfort they provide for pedestrians and cyclists that will occur due to the construction of the median busway, subheading. BPAC requests that the city expend all reasonable efforts to acquire variances from NCDOT to replant any street trees removed with similar trees between the street and the sidewalk and in the median where space permits. Bullet point 3, the lack of a dedicated bus lane on westbound New Bern Avenue between Treywick Road and New Hope Road, subheading. The addition of a dedicated BRT lane east of I-440 would provide a safer and more comfortable experience for people traveling on the sidewalk or waiting alongside the existing 6 to 8 lane highway segment. BPAC requests that the city install a dedicated BRT lane on this segment to provide a safer buffer for people outside of motor vehicles. During the meeting, staff stated that they will look into incorporating a number of smaller items into the design based on our discussion, including but not limited to 1, how bike parking at stations will be handled, including options for bike shelters and secure environments that feature lighting and clear sightlines. 2, restricting right turn on red turns at intersections serving BRT stations. 3, including leading pedestrian intervals, LPI, at intersections. 4, increasing the width of crosswalks from 8 feet to 12 feet at intersections serving BRT stations. And 5, eliminating the existing dual right turn lane configuration on Corporation Parkway at New Bern Avenue. We look forward to seeing these items addressed in updated designs, and will continue to work with Go Raleigh staff on these items going forward. The Commission supports the development of the New Bern BRT corridor and believes it will serve as an important component of Raleigh's multimodal transportation network. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with city staff to develop the best transportation system Raleigh is capable of.
Thank you, Joe. Sorry to spring that on you. I think it was important to read that out just so that everybody could hear it. If anybody was having screen issues, just make sure we got some focus on it. I hope that there are no comments at this point because we've been through the review several times, and I believe it's time to move this on to the council. So, Mr. Lamb.
There's one thing I need to share for the full commission that I shared with the subcommittee, and I want to make sure that it's clear. The third item relative to extending the bus rapid transit lane beyond the current limits. Right now, our project runs a dedicated BRT lane up to Sunnybrook Road and then extends the BRT service out to a planned multimodal station at New Hope Road. While we agree that having dedicated bus lanes along New Bern Avenue will increase pedestrian comfort and bus service in that area, it's not currently part of the project scope, and we do not have the ability to add it as part of this phase of work. It would be considered as part of a future phase. And if there was any opportunity to consider language recognizing that limitation, we would be receptive to that. But I want to make it clear that otherwise, that recommendation is going to be purely a symbolic recommendation.
Thank you for that clarity. So I will open it up for comments, or if anybody has any questions. And if anybody is ready to do so, I would like to accept a motion to present this to council in its current form.
Do we have a quorum here still, Eric? Okay. Well, I move that we present this to council in its current form.
I second.
All right, we have a first, and it's been seconded. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. And is that enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is 7. I think that's our quorum. Is 7 our quorum, Mr. Lamb, or do we need 8?
That's correct. Ms. Barsness, we cannot see you on screen. Your screen is dark. Can you indicate your vote, please?
You just muted yourself.
Ms. Barsness, can you hear us?
How about a thumbs up or a thumbs down? We can't hear you. That looks like a thumbs up to me.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks. I believe that's a unanimous 8-0, and the motion passes, and this will go on to council. Mr. Lamb, procedurally, would you like me to be there to read it or present it? How does this, is this normal, and what would normally happen?
Yes, sir. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but basically we would have this as an agenda item for this before the city council, and you present. You would need to read the letter. The letter would be part of the council's backup, and you could just do it with just a very short presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll be happy to work with you and Paul and whomever to make sure that I have my schedule clear and I'm there. And then, Mr. Caruso, you can get your revenge and watch me read it out loud. All right. Moving on down the committee reports. Mr. Neptune, how would you like to take the outreach committee report?
Happy to do it, Mr. Otwell. To keep it brief, we focused on Walktober, coming up next month, of course, in the month of October, celebrating and acknowledging an entire month to promote healthy activity and pedestrian safety. And, I think we're particularly excited, and I'm certainly excited given that ever since I've come on board the commission, with Ms. Hatchell there. The conversation around doing more to encourage folks to think about pedestrian infrastructure and acknowledging and celebrating that and advocating around it. Seeing the robust set of activities and events occurring throughout next month. Again, just very exciting. All this can be found online at the RaleighNC.gov website. That's been set up by our team, our city staff. Many thanks to B. Person and Paul Black, and just again, everyone who's organized and helped to facilitate just a number of events next month, including a traffic garden pop-up with Commissioner Gellenbeck. Very excited to see that happen. We've got a White Cane Day with former Commissioner Reverend Parrish. And we've got a webinar on better walking with Paul Black, if I'm not mistaken. And as it was discussed earlier this evening, there's going to be an entire walking and biking summit, with city staff. And so just a good number of activities, both in person and virtual, for folks to take part in, where they can again celebrate and acknowledge and advocate around our pedestrian, infrastructure and healthy activity and pedestrian safety in the city. So very much looking forward to all that. And again, all activities can be found online at RaleighNC.gov. Thank you, Mr. Otwell.
Thank you very much. And related, Mr. Black, is there an update on whether the Open Streets event is going to be happening in October as part of Oktoberfest?
We met earlier this week with the project manager, and as far as we know, yes, it is proceeding. It's going to be on Sunday, October 17th. It'll be mostly an afternoon event.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know when we might be able to expect additional information? I mean, I got a call for volunteering at a Stroll the Streets event. I didn't know if that's the official name or that came through a Dix Park email list that I'm on. So is there anything else expected to come forward about this? I mean, I know, Paul, it's not your thing, but.
Now, I think the main blitz will begin the first week of October, but some stuff is starting to already trickle out from communications.
See, it does seem to be a trickle at this point. So.
They're still hammering out a lot of details, to be honest.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Tong, can you give us a report for the planning committee, please?
We have not had a planning committee meeting this month because we have moved our meetings now to the fourth Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. So our next meeting will be September 28th at 6 p.m. and we will be discussing the Six Forks Road widening project. So if there are any commission members interested in attending, please let myself or Paul know and we can get you the link to that meeting.
I'd like to point out that the discussions around when to put the planning committee meeting were strategic to allow other commissioners to be able to attend and provide input in both what they would like to see and if they had any comments from that to bring it back to the full BPAC meeting. So we definitely welcome anybody that's interested in these issues. And let's go back to Mr. Caruso, and could you give us a report for the policy committee? Elizabeth is absent today.
Sure. Yeah, so we met on September 9th and talked about two main topics. The first one was an update on the downtown pedestrian study, which is being run by NCDOT, I believe, in partnership with the city. Just as a reminder or context, this is a study that was kicked off after an unfortunate incident where a government employee was hit and killed near the government complex. So the details I don't believe are completely finalized, so I don't want to give everything away yet, but the summary is that there should be hopefully a number of speed limit reductions, signal timing changes, and right turn on red restrictions coming to the downtown core. Hopefully not too far away. And hopefully, once these are in place, we can use them as proof for additional conversations with NCDOT to kind of see some of these treatments in other problematic areas. And then we also talked about the crosswalk marking and maintenance programs. We received a lot of good information from staff about how the program functions and kind of what they handle and how they operate. I think it's definitely definitely provide a lot of background information and kind of understanding on what the process actually is and kind of why certain things happen the way they do. Kind of a main takeaway, just kind of speaking for myself here, one of the key takeaways I had, which was good on one hand and we'll see on the other, is that it seems like everything seems to be running pretty smoothly. It just seems like funding is a major issue. So it's good to see that things are running quite well, but as with most things, it's generally a challenge to get more money allocated to it. So something to kind of keep in mind. But so those are the two main, those are the topics that we covered this month.
Thank you very much, Mr. Caruso. That wraps up our committee reports, and we will move on to staff reports. And the only thing I see under the agenda for staff reports today is the pedestrian count update.
And was it pedestrian counts or sidewalk mileage?
It says bicycle and pedestrian count program update count release, but we'll take whatever you got.
Okay, so one thing is I got the permanent counters. They are sitting in my office and I am working with Parks and Recreation about the installation. So we've got 2 locations that were identified with our resurfacing program last year. One of them is on Hardemont Drive. The other is on Industrial Drive. In talking with Parks and Rec, they are in the process of getting ready to pave the access at the south end of Industrial Drive to connect Crabtree Greenway to Industrial Drive. And we may potentially move it from our original site behind the Costco, which will only get one direction of bikes and the one side that has sidewalks. By putting it at the Greenway entrance, we're going to be able to pick up both directions of bikes. For Hardemont, it'll still be just one side. But the loops are already in the pavement and we just have to figure out where they stub them out and find the wires. Otherwise, it's digging a hole and putting the post in and turning it on, I hope. But it is progress. Again, it took us a long time to get here to hit that part of the bike plan. The count is one of them. In other unrelated news with counts, we found out that Hillsborough Street has 6 counters, pedestrian counters, that are part of the Hillsborough Partnership. And I'm in the process of setting up sort of 4-way talks with the city and the partnership and ITRI, the Institute for Transportation Research and Education at NC State, and NCDOT. ITRI is the sort of master of the data. They clean it all up and standardize all of it statewide for NCDOT. And so it's just making sure that everything works. But it turns out that Hillsborough Street is using the exact same brand of counters and is already using the same proprietary backend that we are for all of the other counts around the state. If that's what we were talking about, I did have that queued up. The other thing I have is we had new aerial photography drop. Did I talk about this last meeting? But new aerial photography has come in and I was finally able to make some time to go in and bring up subdivisions that were done and building permits that were done in the last 2 to 3 years. And I've managed to map over 23 miles of new sidewalk within the city limits that was done mostly by development. And there's a few city projects that are in there as well. I also have a few more that Jason found for me this morning that I'm still in the process of adding. So that might still be a larger total in a couple more days.
And then I had a quick update on the bike share front. Wanted to let you guys know that the Gateway Plaza station is in the ground. It's not online yet. We're waiting for Duke Energy to come hook the power up to that station, but should be over the next week or 2. So really excited about that. Also, the station in front of the Longleaf Hotel is getting installed this Friday. So that one will be coming online very soon as well. So really excited to get these stations incorporated into the system and get some more ridership.
I was out on the Neuse River Trail, and was very happy to see one of those Citrix bikes go flying by. It's far from home.
Yeah, I have to add that the Gateway Plaza is kind of one of those redevelopments that just slipped in there under the radar. And they're doing some really neat development designs that makes it more of a people gathering place. But the fact that we're putting a Citrix cycle there and it's so accessible to the Crabtree Creek Trail is just really awesome. And I'm super excited to have a station near a hotel as well. So people who are coming to visit Raleigh will be able to, use that so effortlessly. So kudos. I'm really happy about the news.
Well, thank you, Ms. Godwin. Very excited to see the Citrix network expand. That unless staff has anything else.
I will wrap things up here on the back end with a few different project updates. If you haven't been through, we've gotten a lot of work done on the Yonkers Road project. Much of the multi-use path that's included in that project scope has been installed now. If you get a chance to get out there too, it's really nice because it's one of our first projects that we've done that includes a substantial stormwater device best management practice strategy for stormwater treatment out there, and so that's coming in. That dovetails very nicely with the reopened section of the Crabtree Creek Greenway, Structure 105, and the linkage along Rashford Drive. I know that's been much awaited. We did a very progressive on-road facility to move that section that has been the vulnerable section out of the creek bed and move it around on a public street and basically bypass that section that's been so problematic in years past. And so we should not have that same trouble again with future storms. So that section is now open and already getting a lot of use. So people are very excited about that.
And Eric, if I can jump in on that specific, there is a Parks and Rec sponsored sort of grand opening event coming up. It's the first Friday in October at 10 a.m. I think that's October 5th. And I know that the chair and vice chair will receive formal invites, but anyone on the BPAC that wishes to attend, please let me know.
Very good. Couple of major road diet projects have gone in the last month or so with resurfacing work by the city. I believe we talked previously about the Green Road project between New Hope Church and Spring Forest Road. And we're now going through a process where we're basically marking the roads, making the changes to the road markings before we do the resurfacing, before we do any of the milling and grinding. It allows us to determine better where those seam lines need to be for the asphalt and to make any adjustments that we need to make if something on the plan sheets doesn't pan out exactly like we thought on paper. So it gives us a good opportunity to test some of the concept in the field before it goes down with the final pavement. The other one that has been completed recently is Brentwood Road, and that's a portion from Lake Woodard Drive back to Capitol Boulevard. And so that was previously a 5-lane road and has now been narrowed down to 3 lanes with buffered bike lanes on each side. So that's a pretty significant change for the character of that section. We're really happy with the outcome so far. I believe that's all I have on the project front. Just an update on the text change regarding street cross sections. That was approved on a 6-3 vote out of the Planning Commission, if I remember correctly. And that is now moving forward to the City Council's table tomorrow. The City Council will consider moving that forward for public hearing. And so we'll find out more. The public hearing dockets coming up are getting pretty full. So it's right now would normally be scheduled for public hearing on the first Tuesday in October, which is October 5th. But it is possible based on the volume of cases that are on that agenda, it may get moved to a different date. So I will make sure to inform the commission once we hear that feedback tomorrow afternoon at tomorrow's City Council meeting. I'll let you know how that proceeds. And then lastly, yes, Mr. Otwell, the rumors are true. I am ending my career in public service. My last day will be November 30th. So I'll be taking a sabbatical during the holidays and then looking at my next career options. So appreciate the support of the commission greatly. Thank you.
We would all sing, but it doesn't work over Zoom. All right, that brings us to general board comments. And I will open up the floor. Ms. Gellenbach, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Otwell. Mr. Lamb, I wanted to explore the safe routes to school because of the impact the pandemic had on the Wade County School bus driver labor shortage, and that it's generating, the pandemic also generated a lot of private vehicle use. And so parents, I'm hearing from parents talking about the extreme amount of time needed to deliver their children to school. And I was wondering if the transportation department works with Wade County's public school transportation departments to possibly organize safe routes, increase the security for children to bike or walk, not only to school, but potentially to let's say a centralized bus stop, so that the school is able to, children are able to access school a little bit easier than through private vehicle use only. That makes sense.
I think so. The short answer is no, we don't have anything along those lines. Our outreach with Wade County schools is usually on an individual basis when we receive a complaint from a school or from parents themselves directly about bicycle and pedestrian accessibility. But we have not received any feedback on that front relative to anything that's been particularly exacerbated by COVID. In fact, so much of everything so far has been with everyone being homeschooled. There's been a reduction in demand up until now. I am aware of the conversations about school bus driver shortages, but not aware of any other things relative to increased demand on carpooling or whatnot.
Yeah, and to the systemic part of it, again, most of our stuff is more at the level of a principal and a specific PTA. But we do work with the transportation unit and capillary MPO. They've got a broader Safe Routes to School program that looks at some of those larger system issues. But at the city, we are more on the implementation side, which is very granular and usually focused on a single school or an intersection near a school.
Right.
But that work is happening.
Mm-hmm. This is unprecedented times, I think I pronounced that correct. It isn't just school bus drivers that we're having a labor shortage. We're also having a labor shortage in mass transit drivers as well. And so, we're having to problem solve at a different capacity than we did before the pandemic. Changed everything, which I really don't see us going back to the old way in transportation because of it. And I just thought, maybe this is an opportunity for us to kind of work together to try to identify roads that, that that have the infrastructure for biking and walking to assist children, to assist the schools, to create a possible new transportation service. Like I mentioned, potentially having a central bus stop in neighborhoods instead of the buses roaming through the neighborhoods. They go to that one stop and the children walk there. I just know what's happening right now. I don't know if that's ever I don't know if I think it's going to be a partnership that's going to get us out of this.
Ms. Gellenbach, I would suggest that perhaps we contact Jennifer Delcourt and get her to come to the planning committee. And I bet you she would love to present what she's doing and brainstorm ways that we can partner to chip away at this program.
If it's something that this department can participate in, that's really what I'm trying to get to the heart of. Is that do we have the capacity to do that? Can we take maybe instigate it? Can we offer it? I just think that it's something that there's a need for. And we know our streets. We know the infrastructure just as well as parents do, but they need to know that, we're working together. The long shot, but, please.
Ms. Hatchell.
Thank you, Mr. Otwell. I have two quick comments. One is kudos. I think last time we met, I told you all I was going to take the ride with on Citric Cycles with folks, and our very own Barbara Godwin was attending, and Mary Jo was there as well. It was a great ride. We had a blast, and so many people. I believe it was through an association, a grant or something with the AARP, and it was supposed to be for people 55 or older. I didn't count everyone's age, but everyone had a blast. Everyone had a great time. We started at the transfer food hall and ended there, and everybody just had a great time. And I can't even tell you the number of people who said, I wish somebody would structure rides like this now and then, so I could come meet people, take a, quick, easy ride downtown, start with a dinner, end with a cocktail perhaps. So anyway, I just want to thank everyone who was involved in that. It was really great. And I think, I hope it doesn't take grants. Maybe there's a way to continue doing that. And I got to know Barbara better. We had a great time. The other thing, last thing is, I just really did want to say, Mr. Lamb, I think I've worked with you now in a professional capacity for decades, and most recently the past 6 years as a member, former chair of BPAC. And I just want to say that I really, you've done so much. You've changed, you've really moved the needle. I think you've had a commitment and a dedication, and I think I wish you the best into your next adventures, and you'll be missed here, but I think we'll see you somewhere else. Something tells me, but anyway, I want to just say personally, because I'm a short timer myself, I think my term is coming up soon. I just want to say it's been an honor to work with you and all the other staff, working with B and Barbara and all everybody. They've just been, it's just really been very dedicated, hardworking staff. I really appreciate that. And I wish you all the best. I can't wait to hear what your next chapter will be. So that's all from me.
Me either. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one quick thing. At our last meeting, I asked about some proposed pedestrian safety enhancements that were going to go into at the Lake Wheeler Road and Centennial Parkway intersection. And I think, Mr. Lamb, you said you'd have an update on that at this meeting, so I wanted to check on that.
I apologize, Mr. Thomas. I did not follow through on getting those details. I know the ballpark of what's going on, but I would be probably challenged to present that in detail here. So let me make sure I make that a point for the next meeting, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
Thank you. Mr. Neptune.
Thank you, Mr. Otwell. Just a quick note to also express my gratitude to Mr. Lamb. He was my introduction to the commission, walked me through the orientation, and he's been a leader and a guide and a mentor all throughout. And I really appreciate his service to the city and to our growing community, and look forward to hearing about what he's got going on next and how we can support him. I did have a question for Mr. Lamb as far as Raleigh PD is concerned. I know we had wanted Raleigh PD to join us, if possible, during our retreat. I understand they were not able to, but I also understand that Mr. Lamb may have had an opportunity to reconnect with Raleigh PD to get an update on that. And before we hear from him, I wanted to make a comment to just thank Mr. Otwell for mentioning my interview with the East Coast Greenway Alliance, which took place today and was subsequently shared via Twitter. And I think a few folks heard about it. And but it happened today, but I don't think it's been shared as far as like the actual interview has been. That's not been shared just yet. But for anybody who's interested, I just wanted to clarify that the interview itself is not publicly available. It was just sort of commented on the Twitter. So thank you, Dwight, for mentioning it.
Just building the hype, man.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Dwight. But yeah, Mr. Lamb, if you could share an update on Raleigh PD. I think the real question is just what's happening with regard to speeding in the city. and enforcement. Obviously that's a concern for our pedestrian community, our cyclists, community, and for all the activities that we're engaged with. So any updates on when RPD could come sit before us and we could have a conversation about that and all their efforts. And I know they've got a lot going on, a lot of constraints. Staffing is a real issue for a lot of our folks, and just would really appreciate the occasion to hear from them directly. So thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Yes, sir. And I have to kick this one over to Paul because I've not had direct contact with RPD and not aware what the current status of that conversation is. So, Mr. Black.
I reached out and have been able to exchange emails with Officer Morris, who you might remember from our last in-person retreat. And he did express dismay that his stand-in was unable to attend, and I have not had a chance to follow up at all. I know internally we talked about potentially kicking some of our issues with the sort of more central RPD chief's office up to our management to kind of press that a little bit. Eric, I'll follow up with you at some point this week, and we'll see if that's gone anywhere.
Thank you both. Looking forward to having Raleigh PD with us and hearing all about what they are doing to, keep our streets and sidewalks safe. So thank you.
Will do. Although I will warn everybody, I already anticipate a full October docket.
All right, scanning through the grid. I don't see anybody else waiting to make a comment. So I'm going to move on from the general board comments to upcoming events. I don't have any upcoming events. Do we have any events? I know there's lots of them, but I didn't write any down. So I don't want to give any false dates. I know there's lots of them. Would anybody like to jump in and save me?
Well, the big roster for us is, of course, with Walktober, and the 8, 10 plus events happening all throughout next month. And again, I would direct everybody's attention to RaleighNC.gov, and you could just type in Walktober in the search, and it'll pull up the whole calendar of events, and we'll keep those updated, and hopefully we'll get some good turnout. And it's a great opportunity again to certainly meet with your fellow commissioners, meet with folks out in the city and the community, and really get to meet and learn all about your city on the ground, right? And hopefully realize all that you can do to advocate for better and improved pedestrian infrastructure in our city. So again, RaleighNC.gov, just a quick search for Walktober, you'll find a whole slate of events and activities, in person and virtual, devoted to healthy pedestrian activity.
Wonderful. Ms. Gellenbeck.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Otwell. I just wanted to mention that my work with Bike Walk-ins involved with the annual conference. It's called, it's going to be hosted in November. It's a hybrid event, so portions will be in person. Everything will be available for, out again. I'm going to wait. Halo. Go in and out. Anyway, so I was talking about Bike Walk NC Summit. It's a open event to the public. Bike Walk NC is our statewide advocacy group, and their real focus is going to be on education this year. So I invite all of you to explore their webpage, Bike Walk NC Summit. It will be November 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's hosted in Durham. It's a hybrid event, so you can choose in-person or virtual participation. And I'm really looking forward to it. So wanted to let you guys know about it.
Thank you very much. I'll add to the list the New Bern Station area planning process workshop. Is it a workshop or an open house? Jason Harden clued us into the virtual hybrid in-person event, October 15th from 1 to 4 p.m. And that looked like it would be a pretty interesting one to attend if anybody has time. And I will move on from events if nobody has anything else, and we'll confirm our next BPAC meeting will be on Monday, October 18th at 6 p.m. I look forward to seeing everybody virtually. This will be another virtual meeting. And please check the website if you're looking for one of the committee meetings. We have a planning committee meeting coming up in 2 weeks, I believe is our next one. And with that, I will call this meeting to an end and we will go ahead and adjourn. I'll see everybody next time. Thank you very much.